Hey, I'm Rob Patz,
I'm Jason Webb.
and this is Thrive.
Thrive with Rob and Jason, right?
Yes, I was so excited. Hey, it's been a week. It's
It
been a
has. It
minute,
has.
as they say.
Yeah,
And hey, listen, we just got back from an amazing event.
yeah.
In it's technically was Council Bluff, Iowa, but really, to be honest with everybody, it was Omaha. It just happened to be on the Iowa side of Omaha, which, by the way, all my friends from Iowa gonna get super heat for that. They're gonna be upset that I would actually say it that way, but because Iowa people are very proud, Jason.
Yes, they
But
are.
but we
We're
had a
finding that out.
wonderful time. Had some great pizza while we were there.
We can't tell. We can't tell certain individuals about that, right?
Yes, Jess, if you're watching, we didn't have any pizza, but no, we had some pizza. Got to meet some great people. Hey, in fact, got to have dinner with the buddy that you got you're repping his shirt today.
I got it right here. Yep, good old Bryce McKinley. Trust Jesus. One of the great speakers that we had at the event. It was incredible. Just the atmosphere, the people there, the speakers. God was completely present there. And you know, if you watched it live, we had it streaming on Abundant TV, and we really appreciate you checking that out. And man, it was just incredible, wasn't it, Rob?
It was awesome. Over 33,000 people watched on Friday. And
That's crazy. Crazy.
that was cool.
No promotions, everything else, just God working and getting those cameras up to people. You get the live stream there where they got to hear about the message and about Christian business. It was just incredible. Craig and Desiree, who put this event on, their hearts are amazing, and we're already looking forward to next year, right?
That's right. And go to ignite-cb.com and get ready for 25. My wife and I are already ready. We left on Saturday morning. We had Kristen was actually singing Saturday night. So we left Saturday morning at 4 a.m., flew back to Detroit, and then had to go to where she was singing. And it was crazy, but we were so pumped. We had like 2 hours of sleep and we were ready. Like Kristen said, I wish it was starting right now. I wish it was next week. It was
wish we had one more day.
Time. Yep.
Yeah, wish we had one more day out of it. Just it was it definitely wasn't expected. I didn't come with a ton of expectations. I just want to see God work, and man, did he not disappoint, right?
He did, and it was an amazing time. Hey, listen, though, we would really encourage you, get ready for 25. It's going to be May next year. We would love to see you there. Jason and I will be there, so we want you to come and hang out with us. A couple of great days in the Omaha area. We even now know, because we scoped it out, there's a good place for pizza. We'd love to have you come and hang out with us, and maybe we grab some pizza together. I got to talk about something, because being from Minnesota, I have to bring this up. How the Nuggets doing? How they feeling?
Hey, we really don't need to get into that, Rob. They went down to Game 7. It was tough. We had a great first half, and then kind of just dumped it in the second half and of that game. And we're out. So
yep.
Good luck.
So now are you a Timberwolf fan?
No, we just move into football.
I think if you're in Denver, probably moving into football is really not a good idea.
Well, as long as we kind of stay away from the Rockies, I am a fan, but I just have a hard time rooting because they're horrible.
It's brutal right now. It is. Hey, well, my question for you is, because this is my thing. So once, like in any sport, when my team loses, I then cheer for the team that beat my team.
I do as well, yes.
Because then you go, well, at least I lost to the champions.
Exactly.
At least I lost. When they get blown out in the next round by whoever, it doesn't matter whether. Yeah, then you go, whoo, we really are bad.
And, I know we talk about sports every week too, and our guest today is actually in the sports world, right?
Yes, he is. Hey, and we're gonna bring him in here in just a second. But I just had this wild idea, because we're unscripted. Sure. Hey, listen, we play I do, and I think Jason does too, fantasy football. We should start a league. I think we need to do this. I think we need to start. So if you like football, you're watching this, let's get a league together, a bunch of guys, hang out, do some fantasy football this fall. But right now, what you gonna do when we introduce our next guest?
I love it. Yeah, we have a wrestling legend here, right? The American GI, Richie Scruggs. Richie, tell us
Yes,
about
sir.
yourself. Tell us about your wrestling background. We've talked off camera about this, went over some history of some things. I am so excited to chat with you today and some things that you have in the works with Wrestling for Christ.
Yes, sir. Glad to be on the show. I appreciate you guys having me. And first and foremost, I always want to thank the Lord for what He's done for me in my life and what He's doing for my ministry. It drives my wife crazy when I say my ministry because it's not mine. Without Him, there would be no ministry. So with His ministry through Wrestling for Christ, it's an organization that we started back in 2008. Actually, I started traveling over to the Philippines. Started wrestling professionally. Let me say that first. Started wrestling professionally in 1990. Wrestled all over the country. Wrestled with some of the biggest names in the business. But felt led of the Lord to go on my first missions trip back in 2008 to the Philippines. Fell in love with the people over there. Used wrestling. Everybody knew I was a wrestler. They'd pull up my matches on YouTube. So the pastor came to the United States a couple of years later and came to one of our shows and brought his tape measure and measured the ring and said, "Brother Richie, if I build a ring in the Philippines, will you come wrestle?" And I said, "Yes, sir, we will." So in 2017, they had us an 18 by 18 ring built in Manila. Went over there, and our very first show, we got out of the car, our very first show there in Tarlac City, we had 10,000 people there.
Wow, praise Jesus.
Over 2,500 accepted Christ on that first show.
That is incredible. And so wrestling's just the vehicle for the gospel. And
I tell the preachers, cool. I said, "Preacher, we'll get them to the table and I'm going to let you feed them." So we wrestle for them, and then the pastors wrestle with their hearts. And that's just the way we look at it. And it works. I mean, I've had people say, "How does wrestling and sharing the gospel work?" Well, just follow us. Come to one of our shows. We have a guest speaker. We don't do a show without a preacher or somebody, youth pastor, worship leader sharing their testimony, preaching. And I'm telling you, Lord has really opened a lot of doors for us. We're doing a lot of festivals now, getting into a lot of churches. God is good. I mean, He's using it and it's working. Trust me, it works.
It just reminds me of the story with Jacob wrestling with the Lord. Remember, where he wrestled all night and wrenched his hip out of socket. And that's about wrestling in the Bible. See,
if you do it right, it'll work, and we do it right. We, my guys, like I said, we're Christians who just happen to wrestle. A lot of us go to the same church. Speaking of churches, my pastor, P.R. Culberson out of Cowpen, South Carolina, at Love Springs Baptist Church, is probably my biggest supporter. He really supports our trips over there. I go a month at a time. We wrestled 10 shows. We wrestled 10 shows in 6 days. Now, you got to understand, in the Philippines, our venues are all outdoors because there's usually no running water or no electricity. We wrestled in Dingalan, Aurora last year, and it was 135 degrees with the humidity.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm not afraid to say this because God's been good to me, but it's probably one of the best shows that I've ever been a part of.
That is
three
so cool.
simple matches. We had 2 singles matches and a tag match. And when I say there was 10,000 people, there was actually more. There was 10,000 that was in the compound, but you could look over the fence and see people up in the trees and people up on the rooftops. And so the pastor said it was easily 15,000 people that were watching the events. And
that is incredible.
It has grown and grown and grown, and we're booking more towns, more cities over there. And of course, it's free. One of the poorest countries in the world. So we raise our own support through all of our journeys traveling around the states wrestling. And then we go over there and put on free wrestling events, but we do get to share the gospel, and they stay, and it works. I'm telling you, they're so hungry. They're so hungry for things over there. They love wrestling, but they love the Lord as well.
Well, and just spreading the gospel is incredible. So Richie, let's go back. I know we talked about this off camera a little bit. Tell me about your background. Like, how did you get into wrestling? How do people do this?
Well, my plans weren't to do it. I had a wrestling background growing up. I did amateur and Greco-Roman wrestling and did it all through school and was always a gym rat. We had a local gym here in Shelby, North Carolina called Iron Bar Gym, and Manny Fernandez, the Raging Bull, was my next door neighbor. Raging Bull lived next door to me. So we were good friends and had always been good friends. And anytime he was in town, we'd work out together, and he just always nudged me a little bit and say, "Come on, man, you could do it. You need to get into professional wrestling." Well, at that time, I would even you didn't really laugh at me. I wasn't laughing at Manny. That's something I would never do. I would never laugh at Manny. but I would laugh and say, Manny, I can't do that. My background's it's what I do is the real deal. And he's like, I'm telling you, man, you could do it. You could do it. So months after months after months of taking him to towns. When he'd come in, when he was on a leave, I'd pick him up at the airport. Well, on the way home one night, he said, I got a show in Concord, North Carolina. If you can pick me up early, I got to get there. Got a big event. And we got there to the empty building. Nobody was there. The ring was set up. He got me in the ring, picked me up and body slammed me a couple times, gave me a suplex. And I was hooked. And of course, my father's military, mom and dad both are buried in Arlington National Cemetery, but he was a 30-year Army retired master sergeant. And so the GI gimmick is in honor of my dad. And cool. I've always had the flat top growing up. So kids in school always called me GI. We left the Army bases and moved. They'd call me GI Joe. So it was always a fun thing. But Manny hit me up a few months after we were training and said they're having a huge 4th of July show in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Ivan Koloff, who was a tag team champion of WCW and Crockett Promotions, they're looking for somebody for Ivan to work a big patriotic show. And I told him, I said, I got this kid. I was 19 years old, 20 years old. I got this kid, perfect American GI character. Let's bill it as the American GI versus the Russian Bear, American flag versus the Russian flag. So that's where the American GI character was born, and me and Ivan had that match that night. And, of course, I'm back in the locker room. My very first match, I'm thinking I'm just going to go out there and get the brakes beat off of me. And I talked to Ivan, and Ivan says, brother, this is Ivan had that raspy voice, and he said, this is the 4th of July. Just go
America's
out there.
Gotta win. Yeah.
America's got to win. This is the 4th. I don't care how we do it, but the American GI's got to win. And I tell you guys, we took that match all over North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee. We had it down to a science. It was American flag versus Russian flag. And so, I tell everybody, Manny was my trainer, but Ivan really taught me a lot on all the matches I had with him in the ring. And then I left. South Atlantic was the company I was working for at the time. They were a pretty good sized company here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they folded, and I ran into the Italian Stallion in George South. And, I started working for the PWF from 92 to 97. And you guys, Italian Stallion or George, they were just great. They were good to me. So my training continued with them. And I still work with George today. He's on all of our events. He's one of my main speakers, one of the greatest Christian men I know. At the drop of a hat, if something comes up, I said, George, can you share for me tonight? And he'll get in the ring and share the gospel. And I just can't get him on a plane to go to the Philippines.
Go to the Philippines, huh? No. Oop, we lost you there, Richie.
Yeah.
There you are. Sorry, I lost you there for a second. So that's incredible. That's man, that is so cool. And we were chatting with off screen, before we jumped on here. And Rob, you have some background in some wrestling as well, with knowing a few people, right?
I do. I know a few of the people. I don't know Manny. I heard about Manny, but I did not know Manny Fernandez. And I love the idea. George South is the guy I want to ask you a question about. That's why I popped back in. I do this. Yeah. George South, the thing that a lot of people, if you're a casual wrestling fan, you just know him as the guy that seems to lose, or what they call a jobber. But he really is a talented wrestler because he had to take care of all of the other wrestlers.
He did, guys. I can tell you firsthand. George is probably one of the hardest working men in the business. I mean, he's been in the business since '84 or '82, but he wrestles 3 and 4 nights a week. Still wrestles 3 and 4 nights a week. Has a great training school. But I can tell you some stories where George would show up when he was with Crockett. I was just breaking into the business good, but he would be with Crockett. And he'd already have a match. So he was working Ricky Steamboat on a televised show. He was the enhancement talent. Well, Flair would come in and say, hey, I saw where George South was here. I'm wrestling him. And they would say, well, no, he's already booked with Steamboat. And Flair would say, well, put George under a hood. I'm wrestling George tonight. And then the Road Warriors would come in and say, hey, we saw George here tonight. We want to work with him and somebody. And it's like, well, he's already wrestling twice. And it's like, well, put him under a hood and put him with somebody else. Because George was that good. He was mentioned in Ric Flair's book on multiple occasions. If you ever had a chance to read Ric Flair's book, Ric Flair sings his praises and says that was just somebody, when you knew you were working George, you were going to be taken care of.
That's
And
awesome.
see, that's a terminology that they talk about for those that aren't wrestling people, is that they take care of each other, because it is like it's a sport that is, we say, well, it's all pre-planned as to who's going to win or something, but it's still, you are an athlete trusting another athlete
Exactly.
to take care of you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Well,
when I hear people say that, I tell them, I've separated my shoulder over the years, broke my tailbone over the years, a busted head, stitches in the back of my head, a cracked
Mhm.
rib. So people can say what they want, but it's a tough sport. I mean, it really is. But we do take care of each other. And if you get in the ring with somebody like George or even Sal or any of those guys, Ivan Koloff was another one. He'd been in the business all those years, and I never worried anywhere I went when they said, "Hey, I've got you and Ivan working tonight." I never worried. I knew I was going to have a great match. I knew I was going to be taken care of. He knew he was going to be taken care of, and that's the way it is.
Well, when you think about this, and some of those moves, suplexes, body slams, different things, if it's done wrong, you can severely hurt somebody, paralyze people.
I've seen it. I've seen guys break their arms landing wrong. I've seen guys get their heads busted open, taking a turnbuckle shot to the head wrong. I've seen ankles turned. I've seen shoulders dislocated. I mean, I've seen it, and it's not something that you like to see, but it does happen. It does happen. But it's just the moves. I mean, you take a backdrop from somebody that's 6'4", they're going to launch you another 2-3 feet in the air. So you're taking a 10-foot fall straight down onto your back. And if you've got your arms in the wrong place or your legs in the wrong place, you could easily break a leg or break an arm. I've seen it happen.
Man,
so I want to ask for all the people that are out there, because I know the answer to the question, but I want you to tell them, what is the ring actually made of? Because there are a lot of people that have this false belief that it's like a pillow that they're landing on.
I wish it was a pillow. The WFC ring is a 16 by 16 solid steel with plywood across it, and maybe a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch wrestling mat, which, if you've ever been on a wrestling mat, that's a solid thick pad. I mean, you can't have anything softer in there because of all the running you're doing. You could twist an ankle. So no, it's I love for people. I've had people getting in the ring that want to train, and George could tell you the same thing. They take a bump or two and they're like, "This is not for me." I thought it was going to be softer than that. I thought it was going to be easier than this, but no, it's not. It's solid. But you do learn how to take the bumps. You do learn how to take care of yourself when you take the bumps. But there's many nights I get the wind knocked out of me. I've come home with bruises all over me, but I love it. That's, Lord's opened the door and allowed me to do this. If not for him, I wouldn't be doing it. But yeah, it's not a pillow. It's not a trampoline. There is a little give to it, of course, because if you slam somebody 300 pounds just on straight plywood, they're going to just fall through and hit the floor.
Yeah.
But it's cross beams of metal with plywood and just a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch thick mat on it. That's all the give that we have.
So my other question to you, Richie, how many times have you set up the ring?
I set it up every show.
Yep.
Yeah,
times, right?
Yeah, and still today. It's funny how the new guys will, they'll even say, GI, like everybody calls it GI. I got this. I was like, no, I'm good with this. I'm good with this. But that's the way I was brought into the business. If we done a PWF show, when I come up through the Professional Wrestling Federation, even with South Atlantic, if the show started at 7, we were there at 1 or 2 o'clock with the ring. And you were expected to be there to help set up. And then when the ring was set up, you set up chairs. And then you got in the ring and trained a little bit. And then at the end of the night, you put chairs up, you tore the ring down. And I mean, I know the bigger, if it's got WWE on the marquee, they've got a crew that does that. But we are that crew, the Wrestling for Christ Ministry, me and all my guys, even my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, 13-year-old son travel with me all over, and they will grab chairs, they'll grab aprons, they'll grab turnbuckles, ropes, whatever. It's a family job, and we all work together and we get it done. There's a science to it. I've been to some shows and I'm like, man, there's no reason it should take 2 hours to set this ring up. We can get it done in 45 minutes.
Yep.
That's awesome.
There's a science to it.
One really cool thing that we talked about off air here is you were a Christian before you were a wrestler.
Yes, sir. I got saved, born again in 1988. Been saved. I've not always been what I should have been, but God's never failed me, never turned his back on me. There's been some times, even in the wrestling business, where wasn't doing what I should, and I could go on and on about that, but God's just opened a lot of doors. But I was saved long before I started professional wrestling. So, matter of fact, the pastor from the Philippines, when he said, "Brother Richie, can you come to the Philippines and wrestle?" And I wanted to make it clear to him and his associate pastors and his church families. I've got 24 churches over there that I work with, so we wrestle everywhere over there. But I made it clear
That's
to all of them,
fantastic.
look, guys, when wrestling, I can do that anywhere in the United States. We can take that ring anywhere we want. So if that's all you're wanting me to come for, we can stay here and do that. But if you're telling me I can share the gospel,
That's amazing.
then we'll come and share the gospel, but we'll use wrestling to get them there. So like I said, the wrestling gets everybody to the table, and then we feed them with the gospel. And the wrestling's the cake, but the sharing the gospel is the icing on the cake, and that's just the way
That's
we look
awesome.
at it.
We just threw up the QR code there for your Facebook page that people can check out Wrestling for Christ as you do this, because that ministry, man, that is incredible. Knowing what you guys are doing out there, those numbers that you're hitting, and I know we talked about you're already planning out there to go this November, and then
November
also,
the 1st through the 29th we'll be there. Yeah, and we're going back. The whole team's going back July of 2025. It's a pretty expensive trip. I mean, and Lord always provides. We don't worry about that. Me and my team, when we set the date to go and we set the date with the pastors over there, it's a done deal. Lord's always provided, and He's going to continue to do so as long as we're doing it for Him. I honestly feel like He's always going to provide. But it is a costly trip, and there's usually 6 to 8 of us that go. And we raise our own support through our shows. But now we don't just wrestle. We don't just wrestle for Christ. We do a lot of Christian crusades here in the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina. I mean, we set up the ring in churches and share the gospel. So it's not, our ministry is mainly in the Philippines. That's where we go. That's where we want to go and continue to go. But I always tell people, have ring will travel. If they call and say, Brother Richie, we're wanting to do something for our young people, we're wanting to do something for our community. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you. When the preachers call me and they say, what does it cost? And this is the honest truth. I said, preacher, I don't have a price.
Yeah.
If you're telling me you want me and because we all got jobs. I mean, I taught school for years. I'm a personal trainer now. My family owns a transportation business. 2 of my guys are school teachers. One of them owns a plumbing company. I mean, we've all got jobs. We work. So when a pastor calls and said, what would it cost for Wrestling for Christ Ministries to come to our church and do a show? I always tell them, I said, preach, I don't charge.
Yeah.
Now, if you're telling me you're wanting to give us something, you can make a donation to our ministry, because it all goes to the ministry. We don't get paid. When the guys, they know when they come to wrestle at the shows, the money that we're putting into the ministry is going to actually pay for our trips to the Philippines. Last year, guys, and like I said, Lord's always providing, but it was $15,000 just for airline tickets last year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, Lord provided. He provided all that for us. He provided enough for our hotels, our meals, and when we leave the Philippines, we leave with empty wallets. We leave everything we raised over there. And that could be, guys, I get choked up a lot when I'm going to tell you this story. And I apologize if I get choked up.
That's okay.
But my wife 2 years ago, she said, hon, have you looked at your Facebook page today? And I said, no, why? And she said, well, you need to get on and see what Pastor Nelvin posted on his Facebook page. Well, Pastor Nelvin's one of our young preacher boys over in Santa Maria, Bulacan. Just grew up in the ministry, just a great Christian man, young preacher boy, has nothing. I mean, they make $100 a month US is all they make, and they live off that. So I noticed his shoes had holes in the bottom of them. They'll stick cardboard in the bottom and tape them up. And so I said, Pastor Nelvin, let's me and you go shopping today. I said, I'm going to go buy you some shoes. And of course, he's like, Brother Richie, I don't need shoes. And I said, I know you don't, but I want to go and take you and buy you some shoes. So I took him to the local mall in Manila. He had never been there. Just stuff like that just touches me to think. I said, well, let's go to this shoe store. So we went to Foot Locker, U.S. store, Foot Locker, right there in Manila at the big mall. And he looked around and just really didn't know what to do. And I said, let's get your shoe size. Didn't know what size shoe he wore. So I bought him a pair of Air Jordans. And that's what he wanted, because they walk. Now, in the Philippines, they go to church 7 days a week. And what I mean by that is they don't just go on Sundays and Wednesdays. On Saturdays, they're going and knocking on doors, inviting people. On Mondays,
cool.
they're having youth outings. On Tuesday, they're having youth camps or vacate. They do it year round. So they walk a lot. So long story short, I bought them some Air Jordans. And my wife called and said, you need to get on your Facebook page. And guys, I got on that Facebook page, and I'm going to get choked up. But he said, this is the greatest day of my life. I got my first real pair of shoes. And
oh, man. You're going to make me choke up.
Here in America, when we get our shoes dirty, our kids want to discard them. They want to throw them away. Oh, Dad, I need new shoes. Well, you're talking about a man who was 26 years old and never had a pair of shoes.
Never had a new pair of shoes. Man, that is incredible.
So that's why we do what we do. We love to get over there. So it's not the wrestling. My guys go and we stay 10 days. They all come back after 10 days. Well, I stay for another 2 weeks and visit our churches. No wrestling ring, no American GI, just Brother Richie. I speak in all of them. If they said, Brother Richie, we need to dig a ditch, I will get a shovel and dig a ditch. So it's not all about the wrestling. The ministry is great over there.
It's all about God,
the ministry, we've seen, just last year alone at the first show, 2,500 accepted Christ.
Oh.
I mean, guys, when I say they got it, they really got
Jesus.
it. I mean, they really got it.
Well, and I love it that you're using the wrestling as a vehicle just to get in front of them, and inviting them to Jesus, where he changes lives, right? And so exactly. I praise you for being obedient to the Lord and everything that you're doing, and using your skill set, because you were reaching them where they're at, and that's what God called us to do. That's what God called us to do, and it's just I love your heart. I love what you guys are doing for Wrestling for Christ, and we're talking about doing some things as well. And I don't want to bring any of that up yet, but we will be talking about that, I'm sure, at some point in the near future. And I love it. Rob, what do you got?
I think we need to have Richie back on, because I think he makes me excited about wanting to do things. And it's I think, hey, just one quick question, Richie. When you wrestle and stuff, do you guys have like a belt, different belts, like a world championship belt and all that stuff, or do you just wrestle?
Oh, I think he froze on us.
Yep. Yeah.
That's okay. I have seen some of the videos, and yes, they do have some belts, right, Richie? You got your back yet? Nope, we ain't got no sound on you. I think we lost your sound.
Hey, listen, man, we're at just about the end here.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, just check out, just right there. Go down there, check out their Facebook page. I'm like seriously pumped. I want to go wrestle with Richie. Not really. No, not really. No, I know how hard that's. I'm going to come back and say I've been in a ring, and I know how hard it is, even as a kid, being in a ring and falling, how it felt. So, man, just appreciate it so much. Check them out, and as Jason hinted to, we've got some stuff we're working on, and we're super excited about, and we think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredible. But it's really cool how he's going to where they're at, getting those groups. I talked to them, and they're going to have an event next year where they're projecting over 25,000 people come to this event. And a lot of these people are not Christians, where they can get in front of them. Like you said, this past year, they had 25 people give their hearts to Christ. So just what they're doing in their ministry, it is so incredible. Being able to do this. So again, check out that QR code there.
Right there. Yep, there it is. Hey, and we don't say this very often on the show, but go and support them. What a fantastic ministry. I'm sure Richie would love your help with that. And we appreciate you so very much. Hey, another show, buddy.
I know we're getting better at this, I think.
No, we're not really, but sure, we'll say that, because people would go, no, they're really not getting better. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do this all again next week. Go out and